Ooh, Ilhan Omar didn't quite expect this. Now, did she? When she woke up this morning, the President of the United States coming out slamming Ilhan Omar, suggesting that actually she might be looking for some jail time. And it all happened after she said this.
The one place where we thought we would never experience this is the U.S. states. I am ashamed.
Yeah, we're kind of ashamed of you as well, Ilhan. For what it's worth, we're going to get into what the president's saying, alleging, and also whether or not she could be deported for all of this, because another representative in Minneapolis is saying, you know what? Enough is enough. Listen to what he's introducing for legislation with his new bill.
This law would just provide that is a basis to denaturalize, take away your citizenship, and ship you back.
Whoa! Could he really do that? We shall discuss. Meanwhile, oh my gosh, did you see these church protesters over the weekend? So they went in there with Don Lemon, the fired CNN host, and they decided to cause quite a ruckus. The DOJ is paying attention, and they're now looking at filing charges against these protesters. One wonders, is Don going to be included in that himself? I mean, according to some of the liberal blogs, yes. I don't know if that's the case, but look at what went down.
Tell us why you're doing this.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there, and then we disrupt business as usual. So that's what we're about to go do right now.
Woo! Okay, we are going to cover all of that. So again, those protesters facing charges from the DOJ. Harmeet Dillon just confirming that moments ago. Welcome to the big show, everyone. I am Trish Regan. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. Happy Martin Luther King Day, by the way. I don't think Martin Luther King Jr. would really appreciate what he's seeing going on right now. Certainly not from the likes of one Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is saying some pretty awful, gross stuff about the United States of America, to which the president is kind of saying, okay, enough already. Go home. Go home. But it's worse than that. He's actually saying Ilhan Omar should face jail or go home. Take a look at the tweet that came out, or Truth Social, I should say, just earlier this morning. There is a $19 billion that's missing, right? In Somalian fraud out of Minnesota. Fake, quote, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, a constant complainer who hates the USA, knows everything there is to know. So he's suggesting here that she is complicit in all of this and somehow knew what was going down. He goes on, quote, she should be in jail, or even a worse punishment, sent back to Somalia, considered one of the absolutely worst countries in the world. She can help make Somalia great again. She really doesn't seem to like the United States, not one single bit, referring to it, with words that only she would use. Here we go.
Those of us who escaped places like that, the one place where we thought we would never experience this is the U.S. states. I am ashamed. And we must do everything that we can to bring back the America we all escaped into.
Bring back America. I mean, it's like, make America great again, right? She's trying to steal a few of his lines. As I said, we are ashamed of you, Ilhan Omar. We are ashamed that you are so willing to look the other way. I mean, reporters have asked you about it, and you're pretending like there's no fraud whatsoever. When we're talking about a massive amount, I've seen estimates of $9 billion. The president now saying $19 billion. I mean, enough is enough. And yet she just wants to go on and on and on about one thing only, and that's the federal overreach. Oh, she doesn't want anybody checking in on the fraud. She doesn't want the Treasury Secretary of the United States of America looking into the Hawala network that made off with $700 million. Yeah, nearly $1 billion over the span of 2 years in cash. In suitcases stuffed with cash. And they actually declared this. Imagine how much they didn't declare. Leaving the Minneapolis airport. I don't think so. And yet she's going on about this.
What we are witnessing right now is unprecedented. There is no modern precedent for this level of federal overreach, violence, lawlessness carried out in the name of immigration enforcement. This administration has unleashed primarily paramilitary force into our neighborhoods, terrorizing families.
It kind of makes you think there's something to the whole English as the language of the United States of America, right? When you hear her speak, about the paramilitary forces that she cannot pronounce, or the coonies, meaning cronies. That was the other day. Yeah, we won't bore you with that one. But she did make the airwaves over the weekend, going on and on about how politically motivated this is. It's just because people don't vote for him that he's suddenly targeting fraud. Are you kidding me? Like, you think it's okay? Apparently she does. She thinks it's perfectly fine to have all this fraud coming right out of her little district. 80% of the fraudsters, guess what? They all hail from Ilhan Omar's district, and she wants to say this is political? Well, we're supposed to look the other way? We're supposed to take it? I don't think so, lady.
We have rejected Trump as the president in all of the 3 times he's been on the ballot. And he is very angry about that. That is why he has promised to attack us, to send his goons to our cities to terrorize us, and now go after our leaders that are protecting.
Whoa! Okay. Because you guys committed fraud, and you think somehow you should just be able to continue doing it. That's pretty wild, right? Like, I mean, even for her, but this is what she keeps saying, that they have no justification for being there. None whatsoever. No justification for looking at any of the financial records that are involved with these alleged fraudsters. She's so furious about this, she can't see straight.
I'm so exhausted in trying to ask what any of this, information has led to you finding any criminals that you have indicted that explains why you are wasting so much of our taxpayer resources and also terrorizing our communities in the amount of federal law enforcement agents that you have in the streets of our city and our state. There needs to be some sort of justification.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go with the $700 million that somehow left the city of Minneapolis in cash, in suitcases for Dubai. That has me a little concerned, right? I'm going to go with the alleged $9 billion in fraud. Hey, we've got all kinds of fraud that actually came from your own darn program, lady. $250 million of it, right? Feeding Our Future, that her own campaign staffer was convicted. I mean, he was tried and convicted of stealing millions of dollars. And she's like, well, why are they here? What could this possibly be? All while, I told you about this last week, she was trying to steer that $1 million to the addiction group that was housed above the Somali restaurant in her district. This was like 10 days ago. And if it weren't for Joni Ernst pointing this out and saying, hey, we're not going to allow for this, when they did their deep dive, she was still trying to get money for these. I mean, in this case, we're going to say alleged fraudster, because I don't know that Somali restaurant that had a mental health clinic above its, food area is actually fraud. But I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say it doesn't sound good, right? So you've got a lot of problems going on. It's all happening as the Pentagon prepares 2 Army battalions for possibly going into Minneapolis as things just descend into total chaos. But again, I want to stay on Ilhan right now, because Ilhan Omar is just so egregious and so full of herself that when she's confronted with reality, I want you to see how she reacts. Forgive me if you've seen this before, but I think this just kind of sums it all up in one little 20-second clip.
Congresswoman Omar, yesterday you told me to please read when I asked you about the $9 billion fraud that you denied is happening, but I have it right here. I read. Look, Chairman Comer opens hearing on massive fraud scandal, $9 billion.
That's what Comer believes, because he's as smart as you are.
It's not just Comer. It's Scott Besson. It's federal prosecutors. It's House Oversight. And it's Minnesota State Reps.
You can have that, ma'am. I think you need to get examined because your brain has been fried in some way, and it's not okay. I really hope you get some help. You and the Republicans here.
Okay.
Take care.
You know what's not okay? Ilhan Omar, you trying to gaslight everybody into thinking that somehow this is perfectly fine for people to be stealing from U.S. taxpayers. It's not fine. We're not okay with it. And if it means actually having the feds go in and do their job, I think this administration has made it pretty darn clear they're willing to do it. And you're going to have to be along for the ride at some point, because you know what? I don't think it's looking good for you, whether it's the president saying you're going to jail or whether it is Tom Emmer saying, by the way, your competitor there, another representative from Minnesota, saying, Ilhan Omar, You need to deal with the reality of deportation. Yeah, okay, I said the word deportation. Let's go to Tom Emmer, who is introducing legislation that would allow for the deportation of somebody like an Ilhan Omar or others that are involved in these horrific fraud allegations.
This law would just provide that is a basis to denaturalize, take away your citizenship, and ship you back.
Wow. So he wants to be able to take away citizenship after you've already gotten it, if in fact you are one of these convicted fraudsters. He also wants to be able to take away specifically the citizenship of one Ilhan Omar. I'll let him say it and explain it.
And part of this is because I've got a representative in Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, who likes to go on national programs and play the victim. Yet the same representative goes to the University of Minnesota campus and in reality encourages violence against Jewish students. And she says, hey, we're citizens. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, guess what? There is something that we should be able to do about it. You should not be allowed to come to this country, take advantage of the generosity of Americans and the American government, and get away with it. If you commit fraud, you should be denaturalized and shipped back.
Whoa. Okay, so that's a pretty aggressive stance. Could that actually happen? I did some digging, and it's tough, right? So if yes, they can prove that you committed fraud when you were actually naturalized, and that gets back to just exactly who were her parents, who was her father, for example. Was he really fleeing an oppressive regime in Somalia, or was he part of that regime in some way, shape, or form and just trying to get his family out? These are questions that may come up. There's not a lot on her family background, even including, for example, the husband, right? The second husband. I have to keep track. It's sort of mind-blowing how this woman, the good Muslim that she is, has 3 husbands. She's on number 3, right? So let's just say there's not a lot of religion in that household. But the second one may have, according to some stories, including a new report in the Daily Mail, may have actually been the brother. So these are just allegations. I want to be really, really cautious. I have absolutely no proof. It's the Daily Mail's reporting, where they apparently talked to a couple of people in the community suggesting that it was really fishy how the whole marriage went down. Even the fact that she wasn't married in her Muslim faith, but she was married by a minister that won't even talk about it now and actually had nothing to do with the Somali community, they said was really suspicious if she was marrying this other Somalian man. And while married to him, she still had children and went on to have children with the first husband. So all kind of sketchy. Well, this is something that actually Emmer could bring up, I suspect, because denaturalization, it's tough, for crimes that happen after naturalization, because if you're officially a U.S. citizen, I guess our bad. We were the stupid ones for letting you in the first place, or kind of stuck with you at that point, according to the law as we know it. Again, Emmer wants to change that, and we'll see where it goes. But I should also point out that she's not out of the woods yet, because if she's lying about her family's criminal history, if she's concealing any kind of prior immigration fraud, if she used a fake identity, hid membership in prohibited groups, like in other words, if her family had been part of the oppressive regime in Somalia in any way, shape, or form, or misstating marital status or immigration eligibility. Now that would probably affect her brother. I don't know how it affects her, because she's already been made a citizen, unless, of course, Emmer is able to succeed on this. Stephen Miller over the weekend was on Lara Trump's show and actually said something I thought that was quite powerful. We've talked before about how there seemed to be some ulterior motive. Like, why just open up floodgates, say, we're going to let everybody in. We're not going to check anybody at the border, and somehow it's inhumane to do so. It didn't make a lot of logistical sense from an economic standpoint, from a political standpoint, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet they did it anyway. And so you've got to ask yourself why. And I go back to what we saw in New York, where they were trying to put 800,000 non-citizens into the voting system, and eventually the appellate court said, no, you can't do that. Or think about out in California, in Berkeley, for example, where they allow for non-citizens to be voting for the school board. Is there an ulterior motive here at play? Stephen Miller says, don't be an idiot. Like, this is exactly what was going on. And this is why they are so upset right now, because their entire political trajectory, their future in the Democrat Party is based upon this idea that you just keep bringing people in and they keep saying, give me more. And you give them a few little things, keep them down on the farm. They keep voting for Dems. Watch.
Why would Frey, why would Walz sanction such egregious violence against ICE officers? Because they understand that this scheme, this mass migration scheme, is the heart of the Democratic Party's political power. It is their plan for power today and long into the future. So they know that if this administration of President Trump is successful in reversing this invasion, it will deal a generational blow to Democrat political power.
Wow. So he's on to something there, okay? Smart guy. That's Stephen Miller. Smart guy. Sometimes, a little rough around the edges. People get a little freaked out when he delivers the message, but he's spot on. And I think that you have only to look at what the state of New York was doing, 800,000 people being turned away by the appellate court. It shows you some kind of glimpse into the future that they were envisioning. And so this is now very, very political. And what's happening now with DHS saying we're going to get everybody out of the country that is not here legally and has committed a crime, that really hits a sore spot with them. And per Miller, there's a reason for that. Reminder, subscribe, share, like. It's good to have so many of you here today. I want to point out that Donald Trump is darn serious about the Insurrection Act and his ability to use it. The Pentagon, as we speak, has just prepared two battalions in order to be ready for the possible invocation of the Insurrection Act. The President of the United States writing that if the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of immigration, customs, and enforcement who are just trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to the matter. He came out on Friday and reiterated, he doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want it. And that's an important distinction, okay? Because there's a political cost to it too, and we can get into that. And we've seen it reflected already in some poll numbers. There is a political cost to the Insurrection Act. One of you guys in the comments, I think it was on Friday, had a really insightful thing to say, which was that Bush, for example, after Rodney King did not get reelected, and then you pointed out Eisenhower as well faced that challenge after Arkansas. So, people don't like to see this, but at the same time, what do you do when you're challenged with lawmakers in that state of Minnesota that want to defy you so aggressively?
Well, the Insurrection Act, which has been used by 48% of the presidents as of this moment, the Insurrection Act also, if you look at it, I believe it was Bush, the elder Bush, he used it, I think, 28 times. It's been used a lot. And if I needed it, I'd use it. I don't think there's any reason right now to use it. But if I needed it, I'd use it. It's very powerful. Preparing.
I mean, we can report right now that the Pentagon has, again, authorized 2 Army battalions, but they're not going in yet. But they want to be ready, willing and able, of course. The act permits the president to use the military when state authorities request help because they cannot control violence or unrest. Or, by the way, they don't want to do it themselves. Federal law cannot be enforced due to insurrection, rebellion, or widespread obstruction. Constitutional rights are being denied, and states refuse or fail to protect those rights. I want to reiterate what I've told you before, and that's that you do not need the cooperation of the state itself. So if Jacob Frey and Governor Walz say, take a hike, that's okay. Because you need to, as federal government law officers, actually enforce the federal law. And they're not allowing for it. They're impeding it, consistently impeding it. And that therein is the problem. Mayor Jacob Frey trying to say, hey, well, if you just get out, it'll all be fine. No. That's not okay, because again, I'm just going to say you have to allow for the federal government to be able to enforce the law. If you're not willing to do that, then sayonara. I'm sorry, Frey. I'm sorry, Walz. This is why you're getting sued right now.
If this were about order, there would be a simple way to restore it. And let me tell you a secret. It's not restored by additional federal agents. order would be restored, and I will make this prediction, if those federal agents left. As soon as they leave, we will have peace, we will have safety, and order will be restored.
Oh, okay. But, that doesn't really matter because there's one group that's supposed to ensure that we don't have people committing crimes and living illegally here in this country, and that would be ICE, and that would be the DHS. So you can say that all you want. It's kind of irrelevant. And this is why you're getting sued. And this is why the FBI is pursuing federal charges against those protesters that showed up at the church over the weekend. Quick shout out from my own company, 76 Research. The markets are closed today, but we've got a lot of good stuff going on, including the dive down in inflation, 2.7%. I like it, I like it, I like it. You know what? You had BlackRock saying the other day that it's more like 2%. So that's super interesting to me. Anyway, I put this on the screen just because inflation is something that is definitely coming down, and we're moving in the right direction. But don't tell CNN, right? They had a very different tune that they were singing back in, when was that? March 14th, 2023. Inflation is still high, they write, but it's falling. Woohoo! Last month's consumer price index measured 6% down from 6.4%. Woohoo, woohoo, okay? But then when Trump comes in and we're looking at January 13th, 2026, and it's at 2.7%, we still got persistent cost of living challenges. They're not going to celebrate that at all. But you know what? The economy's on fire. You get the Atlanta Fed predicting 5.4% GDP growth. I love it. I love it. I love it. Go to 76research.com. Ooh, did I misspell that? I did. Here's how you know we're in a live show. There we go. Okay, go to 76research.com, my company. You can get the 76 report with code word $. Go look at those model portfolios. I really encourage you. We get 3 of them right there. The FBI is indeed going to pursue charges against the protesters at a church over the weekend. Now, some members of the media have also said that they are also going to charge one Don Lemon. That's something that's being reported by Raw Story. It's sort of being hinted at by NBC News. I don't know if that's the case. I did not hear in the interview with Harmeet Dillon what Raw Story heard, but shame on me to try and slam down what would be a great headline for them. Anyway, you've got Don Lemon, who was part of the group because he was apparently covering it. See, look at his happy little face. This is the guy that used to work at CNN who just really jumped the shark and now goes out on the street and talks to man on the street people and tries to get their impression on things. He said he was committing journalism, kind of odd word choice when he decided to tag along with these protesters. He's the little tag along that went along for the protest at a church, which, by the way, was illegal, no matter what he tries to tell you. Not him being there as a journalist and documenting it, but them going into the church and protesting, highly illegal.
Tell us why you're doing this.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there. And then we disrupt business as usual. So that's what we're about to go do right now.
What was that? Ice out, ice out, ice out. That's what they're saying. There they are in the church.
Demanding justice for Renee Good and letting them know that this will not stand. They cannot pretend to be a house of God while harboring someone who is directing ICE agents to wreak havoc upon our community. Enough is enough. I am a reverend on top of being a lawyer and an activist. So I come here in the power of the Almighty God.
Yeah, you're not a very good lawyer, I'm just going to say, because you can't bust into private property like that and cause a ruckus. And you know who is a good lawyer and who happens to know that? A woman who's running the whole civil rights division over at the DOJ. That would be Harmeet Dillon. Anyway, we'll get to her in a second. But first, Don Lemon, because he clearly never took any kind of constitutional law 101 or really read the First Amendment, I guess. He's very misguided because he's out there defending them, thinking it's their legal right to storm onto private property and intimidate and harass. And in some cases, people have used the word terrorize the churchgoers.
You heard what some of the folks said in there, that this is, they shouldn't be there and, they shouldn't be uncomfortable and this is our house and whatever. That's what protesting is about, is to make people uncomfortable. You may not like it, but, if they went into a church Any church.
Oh, okay. You know what? You're wrong, buddy boy. You're totally wrong. You cannot just walk into a church. It's not like a public street corner, okay? It's individually owned private property. You can't just bust in and say, I'm gonna terrorize these people. I'm gonna scare these people. I'm gonna yell and shut down their church service. No, that's actually not allowed, okay? First Amendment all you want, but you can't just walk into somebody's place of worship. Not to mention, it's also guarded by other things. I want to go to an interview that was just done on my friend Benny Johnson's show. He had Harmeet Dillon on. Again, Harmeet is part of the DOJ. They seem to be putting everybody out except for Pam Bondi these days, which is probably a smart, good thing under the circumstances. Anyway, Harmeet said, look, we're pursuing charges. We're on it. Listen.
We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there.
Okay, the FACE Act. So what is the FACE Act and what can you do with the FACE Act? So let's get to that. So the FACE Act is a federal law passed back in 94. It makes it illegal to use force, threats of force, or physical obstruction to interfere with 1, access to reproductive health services, 2, the provision of those services, and 3, people exercising their religion at places of worship. So when that lady was like, I'm an attorney, and I'm an activist, and I'm a this and that, and I'm a reverend too, guess what? You're not a very good attorney, because a good attorney would have known you can't actually just march onto people's property like that. Private property like that, on top of which it is a place of worship, which puts you in direct violation of the 1994 FACE Act. And basically, she's prohibited. So you cannot physically go in and block the entrance of, interestingly, 1, an abortion clinic, or 2, a church. Threaten or intimidate patients, doctors, staff, clergy, or worshipers. It's like the left's own rules and laws are coming back to haunt it, right? Gosh, Harmeet is good. Harmeet is smart. Don Lemon and his friends, not so much.
In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. The Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the southern states, Dixiecrats mainly, were refusing to give them equal rights. In fact, that you had sheriffs and you had law enforcement harassing the newly freed slaves. So the Klan Act is a law that makes it illegal to violate their civil rights, to get together and conspire to violate the civil rights. It is often used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. We, in the federal law enforcement parlance, call this 241 and 242 civil and criminal conspiracy.
So that's interesting. That's really, really, really interesting. I hadn't thought about that angle to this, but bottom line, they're aggressively pursuing this. The other thing that they're going to be looking at is just exactly how were these protests, including that particular protest at that church, how was that organized and how was it funded? Because this is one of my questions always, like, where's the money coming from? We've talked before about the guy who lives in China, who's married to the woman who started Code Pink, who's a billionaire, and he had been funding all kinds of very leftist communist campaigns to try and influence social media and the way people are thinking in the United States. You wonder, is there any kind of tie back to him? You wonder if there's any tie back to other international, disturbing groups that would want to see this harm upon us. And of course, the Democrat Party as well. Like, is the Democrat Party somehow paying this woman to go out there and do this? We know that the Democrats have encouraged this. I mean, Jacob Frey, the mayor, with his F-ICE, and even AOC out encouraging everybody to partake in these protests. I mean, they're not doing anything to temper this chaos, and that actually puts them once again, I would say, in violation of federal law, and this is why it's heating up so much. You had, as well as the church situation, an influencer getting his camera stolen over the weekend. he was out documenting so much of this work. Nick Sorter is his name. I've shown you some of his videos. Remember, he was the guy who went into the Hilton Hotel and figured out that Hilton was still barring in that Hampton Inn. It was still barring people from going and staying at that Hampton Inn in Minneapolis, and he discovered the whole thing and put it all on videotape. Well, he's been having all these crowds like follow him all over Minneapolis. And finally, somebody got a hold of his camera, stole a very expensive camera. And well, now the FBI is investigating. How do you like that? Good for the FBI. Let's watch the tape.
Hey, what did she just do?
So this is just after someone takes his camera, and he runs out of the car.
Okay, it's okay.
And says, "Hey, what are you doing? Why'd you take my camera?" And then all the crowd gathers. He grabs the door handle of the car, and the car starts driving down the sidewalk. And he's hanging on. At some point, he said he got stuck. And he got stuck to the car. And now he's getting dragged. I mean, thank goodness this all ended. And I just want to preface this by saying,
what happened?
Everybody's alive.
They just stole my camera. Right out of your hand while you were in the car? Let's go. You want it, right? You want it, right? That's what you did. Man, listen, get the out of here. My daughter. You coward. What you a coward?
You have to leave.
He's a mouthpiece. Get the out of here. $1,000 from you coward. You a coward. Nobody stepped. You trying to infect that. Nobody stepped in. Get the out of here, bro. $1,000 from the equipment. Did you call that? Did anybody call 911?
Why are you in this neighborhood?
Have Kevin do it.
Wow.
Okay. We got it all on video. We're not Nazis.
Oh my gosh. So that was pretty ugly. And thank goodness everybody's okay. I want to just reiterate that. But he tweeted about it saying, look, a group of thugs robbed me of my $1,000 camera. They dragged me down the street. My hand got trapped in the door handle. He tweeted this, and FBI responded immediately saying, we're on it. So he had asked that DHS investigate the situation. So I point this out just to kind of give you some color into how difficult it's getting there. Aren't you glad you don't live in Minneapolis, right? Right about now. I mean, this is bad stuff, but they brought it on themselves to a certain extent in that they really just welcomed everybody in. I used to have a producer actually at Fox who ran my 2:00 show, and she was originally from Minnesota. And she said, listen, like Minnesota people, like we're all Swedish, we're all like, come on, we're really, really happy people. We think it's all going to work out. We didn't understand what we were getting ourselves into, and so many of the people there still don't. And it kind of mimics what you're seeing, by the way, going on in Europe, specifically in Sweden right now. The DOJ, meanwhile, is suing Jacob Frey, mayor of Minneapolis. They are suing Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota. And they're suing because we're like, okay, you know what? Enough is enough. Guys, like, hey, law enforcement can't do their job because you will not allow for them to. So at this point, it's total impediment.
When the governor or the mayor threaten our officers, when the mayor suggests that he's encouraging citizens to call 911 when they see ICE officers, that is very close to a federal crime. You cannot do that. If you impede the work we're doing, you better be worried because we're coming after you.
Wow. So this is getting ugly. Here's, I mentioned that you've now got Todd Blanche, who you just heard from, coming out saying we're going to go after them, we're going to sue them. This is in part because there seems to be a lot of concern about Bondi and whether or not she's really going to be able to pull all this off. Pam Bondi, no longer the flavor du jour there in the White House, shall we say. That was an article that came out last week. We've talked at length about that. But bottom line here is the DOJ is moving forward, and that's important. That's a good thing. It needs to happen. It needs to happen. In a way, if you think about it, perhaps this is better than invoking the Insurrection Act just about now. Because if you invoke the act, are you perhaps giving them exactly what they want? I mean, maybe you go after the root cause of the problem, which is the lawmakers there that are allowing for all of this chaos and corruption. Meanwhile, Greenland. Oh boy. Greenland is going to be ours, I think. We're going to get to that story next. But first, a shout out to our friends over at Balance of Nature. You know I love this stuff. Fruits and veggies from me. But they have a whole health system that I would encourage you to check out on their website, balanceofnature.com. Make sure to use, if you decide to go forward with it, my code word Trish, because it helps the show a lot. And of course, it's helping you. You get 50% off right now. This is a deal that they have actually for existing and new customers. So that's a big deal. You lose it, though, I guess, after if you do it once. So make sure you do it once and you use code word Trish. Listen, Balance of Nature is a wonderful, wonderful product because it gives you so much exposure to so many different fruits and vegetables. I mean, it's you'd be cooking all day long, right, in order to get anything like that. And so I can't say enough good stuff about it. They've got a powder form. You can kind of sprinkle it on your food. It dissolves easily in drinks. And so, again, you're knowing that you're getting all of these different fruits and vegetables and vitamins that are so important for you. So go check it out today, balanceofnature.com. We so appreciate their support here on the Trish Regan Show, enabling me to bring you this show for free every single day. So thank you to our friends at Balance of Nature, and do something good for yourself. It's a new year, right? What do they say? New year, new you, all that. Anyway, it's good to be healthy. Drink your water and exercise too. I want to get to Greenland because the president of the United States really, really, really wants Greenland. Greenland doesn't necessarily want to be wanted, but, hey, I think this is going to be an offer, shall we say, that they cannot refuse. You saw over the weekend, perhaps. This was a good one. Donald Trump saying he's going to impose tariffs on 8 European nations over Greenland. So he's not giving up on this one. Why? Because, strategically it does actually matter, and it could matter in the next couple of decades. I mean, hey, if I'm to believe the climate czar, Kerry, I should be worried like next year, right? Because the whole Arctic is melting. And if it melts, what does it mean? All of those sort of icebergs and things that are in the way of Russia and China having a direct relationship with each other and kind of basically being able to dominate that whole part of the earth. Well, if I listen to John Kerry and I follow the whole global warming thing, then I'm really worried. I do want this next year, like maybe this year. But I think we have a little more time than that. But if you believe these trends, it would suggest that by all means, we want Greenland because it's a really strategic asset. And as the president keeps saying, they only got, 2 dog sleds to defend themselves. And Europe doesn't like this. And so they're not going along with it. And he said, okay, you don't like it? Fine. More tariffs for you. I kind of appreciate, I have a sense of humor about this, but I appreciate how he's willing to use financial tools as opposed to say, okay, let's go straight to military involvement. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to cut you off. It's like the parent with the kid that just won't behave or won't do their homework. Well, we're cutting you off, right? No more phone. That's what happens. Remember to go to 76research.com. Go to 76 Research. That's my financial research company. Use code word dollar. We have a whole bunch of portfolios. There are 3 specific portfolios that I really encourage you to take a look at. We did make a recent change in our American Resilience Report. So that's we're seeing that resilience portfolio is all about success and growth for America. And we don't make changes that often, but I think this is one you're really, really going to like. Obviously, everything's up, right? But our portfolios have done especially well. So we're very, very proud of them. And I hope that I can offer you some of my insight and research, along with my colleague, Rob Horton, who worked for decades on Wall Street and was a stock picker and is a very good stock picker at that. And I have a pretty good sense of how things are from a macro level. I want to turn to another story right now. The View is turning against one Hillary and Bill Clinton. I was going to say Hillary Clinton, but Bill too. The 2 of them. I mean, I'm sorry, when you lose Joy Behar, I don't know what I can say for you guys, for goodness sakes.
Unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress. Yeah, good job. With that, be happy to answer any questions real quick.
Mr. Chairman.
Anybody on the committee?
Will you roll out bringing Donald Trump in for an interview?
Well,
in this investigation?
President Trump has answered thousands of questions about Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, I would say today, you all ask him questions every day. He answers questions every day.
Okay, so Comer says we're going to hold him in contempt. That's going to come this week, okay? As in this week. Happy Martin Luther King Day, everybody. That's going to be coming forward. So on Friday, The View shocked everyone. Everybody's like, wait a second. Is this the right show? Did I change the channel by mistake? Did I somehow wind up on Fox? No. You know this lady. She said something that we didn't expect. Kind of interesting when they can surprise you now and then. I would just say, hey, Bill, Hillary, this is not good for you.
Be clear, Bill Clinton hasn't been accused of wrongdoing, and he denies having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes. Both the Clinton keep saying they have no information that's relevant to the investigation. But should they just testify to clear up any suspicions and get the last word in on this? You know, Bill should just say to Trump, I'm more than happy to testify. You first.
Correct.
Well, the interesting thing is she did say, he should say, I am more than happy to testify. I know she had to get a little joke in there. And by the way, he has answered a ton of questions on this. But it shows you that people are kind of singing a different tune. I played in my shorts feed over the weekend, or maybe it was like Thursday last week. Go check out the shorts feed as well if you haven't. We get some fun stuff over there. But I played a representative from the state of California saying, yeah, he should testify. Because what happens if you don't testify? You're held in contempt. What happens? What happens if you're held in contempt? Well, just ask Steve Bannon, okay? Ask Peter Navarro. They'll tell you exactly what happens. I realize that if you have your team in there, and if you had, say, Biden in there, you might not be facing the same risk set. But you don't have that, okay, Bill and Hillary? I think what they're trying to do, guys, and this actually makes me a little bit nervous about the party's future, they're trying to wait it out. They're thinking, okay, if we just wait until midterms, we can predict that Donald Trump is going to lose the House. And when he loses Congress, that means he'll be impeached, he'll be this, we'll be able to distract him with all this other stuff. It actually really concerns me right now, which is why it's important that the situation in Minneapolis gets under control. And that this doesn't spiral into something that he possibly, I think he can recover from anything, honestly, but we don't want it to be a situation that he can't recover from. And so you need to respect law and order. I mean, it's amazing to me. We've played some of the video also on the short feed of CNN back in 2016 for their little ride along with ICE, where they were like, isn't this amazing? Look at what ICE is doing. Look, they're taking their lives in their hands. Yeah, they are. They are. They were then, and they still are. And yet you look at CNN today, and they don't want to have anything to do with this. So it shows you the power of politics and how sickening, really, really sickening all that is. But I'll tell you, ABC has turned on the Clintons. And that's rather telling. It's good to have you all here. Thank you for joining me on a holiday, nonetheless. I'm looking at some of your comments here in real time. I know that we don't have a lot of Bondi fans out there. I get it. And I also get that she is completely inundated. And it's just exhausting how much that she faces. Somebody writes, we need 9 of her. I think we need like 90 of her, right? I see nobody really likes Don Lemon here very, very much. I'll tell you, Don is just a clueless tag-along. Okay, so he was a tag-along in that. I don't know if you can arrest him for it, in all fairness, because, and I say this as a member of the media myself, I've been there at protests, for example, in the middle of G8, right? I'll never forget, in Germany. And I was in thousands of people protesting around me. I don't think it's great that they're protesting. I'm not and some of those things can get a little dicey, right? Am I somehow now possibly guilty of being a protester myself? No, I'm there to video it and to do my little report. At the time it was for CNBC. So I don't know as you can go that far with Don Lemon. I mean, it's one thing to interview a protester before they go out and protest and they do something stupid where they, protest at a church and they break up the church service, etc. Yeah, sure, it's stupid. But again, you're just there as an onlooker and as hopefully a non-biased sort of we'll say filmmaker in the process. What did he say? He's doing the news, or he's exercising his, I don't know exactly how he phrased it. It was not that eloquent. But the point being that we know he's biased, but even if he's biased, he has the right to be there in that sort of quote unquote professional capacity, videoing what's going on. So I don't think that they're going to do that, but don't tell Raw Story, because Raw Story is running with the headline that the DOJ plans to hit ex-CNN host Don Lemon with charges. I did not hear that in the interview. What I heard was Harmeet Dillon is going after the protesters that went in on that church. And she has every right to do so. So that's sort of the takeaway from that. But, this is the liberal media. They're just doing what they do. It's really kind of exhausting and disgusting. But that's why you're here, right? That's why you're here and not there. Please make sure you subscribe, share, like, make a comment. It's wonderful to see you all. We got lots more content coming your way. And I am here live every single day, every afternoon. Make sure you hit all the alerts. Make sure you're still subscribed. And I'll see you back on the Trish Regan Show tomorrow.